These 200 children are helping to green Throsby Creek. This afternoon, with the help of the odd adult, they each planted a tree.
I think it's incredibly important because in the future, they are the future custodians of this catchment, of this local environment. And we've found that if you have the kids involved, you don't get the same level of vandalism either. I mean, the kids become a kind of surveillance system themselves.
This is the second year the students have planted the trees as part of their environmental program, and they were well rehearsed in the definition of the environment. While there was a serious lesson to be learned from today's exercise, there was plenty of fun to be had too. Thanks to the local fire brigade, the children discovered a new way of watering their precious plants.
She's made it to Barcelona against all the odds. People talk of battling to get to the Olympics. Well, it certainly applies to Masada Buric from Sarajevo, who ran through a war to get here. She's trained on the streets of the battle-torn capital of Bosnia, dodging the shells and bullets, trying to keep in some sort of condition to represent her country. Most couldn't leave, but she could, under armed guard on a special flight out organised by the United Nations. From war zone to Barcelona, within a day running free in the sunshine. Until the plane took off, she says, I thought the shooting would start again and we wouldn't be able to leave. Everyone, including the Barcelona mayor, had heard of her.
I saw you on TV, I was very moved.
She will run in the 3,000 metres at the Olympics with the worry that the war still rages back home.
Yes, I've been thinking about it all the time, about my family, about my brother, and all this is a kind of a physical pain which I'm going through.
While Masada Buric may not win gold in Barcelona, she has won the respect of the world. Her competitors dream of winning. Masada has her victory already, simply being here.
It's the first of two preliminary rounds in the Region 4 State Netball League, with 7 teams battling for precious points. Lismore and Ballina fielded 2 teams each, while Kyogle, Grafton and Brunswick-Byron Bay were also represented. Played on a round-robin basis, the 4 leading teams after the completion of the 2 rounds go through to the finals to be held in Lismore. Today's play was evenly contested, although Lismore won and Ballina won shone out early, being undefeated after 3 matches. Organisers were extremely happy with the standard of play and are expecting the finals to be keenly fought, with no clear-cut favourite as yet.
The man was travelling along Frame Drive in Abermain just after 8 last night when he got into difficulty.
Well, it appears the vehicle was travelling in a northerly direction at an unknown speed when he's approached the bend. The vehicle travelled for a distance sideways and then collided with the tree.
The driver was trapped for half an hour before being freed by the Cessnock volunteer rescue crew. He was transported by the rescue helicopter to John Hunter Hospital, suffering severe head injuries.
But it appears at the time of the accident he was not wearing his seatbelt, which has compounded his injuries even further.
In December last year, a family at Coranbong, south of Newcastle, laid a wreath beside the freeway. It was an act which was to become a ritual, a reminder of a son who died, and also perhaps an attempt to play on the conscience of the motorist who ran him down. On Saturday, December 21, 19-year-old David Hurd was dropped off by friends on the F3 freeway north of Dora Creek. It was about 2 in the morning. David had been drinking heavily. He set out walking south towards home. He didn't make it. About 1.4 kilometres south of the Newport Road, he was struck by a motor vehicle and killed instantly. The driver didn't stop. To this day, David's mother wonders why.
How can anybody be so cruel to leave a young man laying there, or anybody laying on the side of the road?
Police say it's possible the driver of a heavy vehicle may not have known he hit David or have even seen him in the first place. However, police are making yet another appeal for information from the public as to exactly how David Heard met his end. The Crime Stoppers hotline is offering a $1,000 reward for information leading to an arrest in connection with the incident. If you can help police, call the Crime Stoppers hotline now on 008 251 009. All information is treated confidentially. The number once again is 008 251 009.
Not the spectacle of Barcelona, but the colour was there at the Broadmeadow Basketball Stadium for the parade of martial artists from Japan, the United States, a big contingent from Canada, Ireland and of course Australia. For the next 3 days, combat will replace friendliness for the richest prize in Shido-Ryu Karate, a World Championship medal. The 4th International Shido-Ryu Karate titles are the first to be held in Australia. Shitoshi Tyoshi, the son of the founder of this style of karate, welcomed competitors, and in response, the ladies weren't forgotten. For tournament director Brian Hayes, a sigh of relief that the titles are finally underway.
The atmosphere here is incredible. There are many more people here than I really expected. There are more competitors than we had hoped for. We initially bragged about the numbers we would get. We got them and we got more. There are more countries represented and many more provinces of Canada and Japan. So the feeling here is fantastic. And obviously the competitors are on a high. So this is going to be some tournament.
And as you would expect, the main threat will come from Japan, but Brian is confident about Australia's chances.
Particularly Hiroshi Tanaka in the Open Men's is going to be the man to beat, and a man called Shimizu who won the Open Division last time. They're very strong competition. In the women's, I think Charlene Machin from Australia, Barrett is defending women's champion from Quebec. The USA we don't know a lot about, but they're big and they look strong. So, but certainly there's an awful lot of Australians who have been preparing really well, and we're going to win a lot of medals, especially I think in the junior and the teams events.
Newcastle's Charlene Machin has just returned from the defence of her World Karate Championship with a silver and a bronze and is keen to take gold here.
I would say the reigning champion Natalie Barrett will want to give me a run, but she'll have to work very hard.
The juniors went through their early rounds today, with the women's and seniors set to do battle tomorrow.
Well, they are fairly comfortable now because they're fairly new.
Nicer to wear than normal.
Well, they are fairly comfortable now because
that's the money. Should we give him a clap?
Yeah.
He's going to be number one because.
It's a pioneering plan developed by the Maitland-based Hunter Valley Training Company. 3 apprentices out of 800 employed by the company are introducing the scheme in England. Glenn Bly, Rob Thomas and Warren Borman left earlier this year to work in their chosen fields, and already the scheme has won the recognition and the trophy from the Queen Elizabeth II Silver Jubilee Trust. Honours usually reserved for institutions such as the Scouting Movement, schools and the Royal Blind Society.
So I understand that this is the first time that an organisation that's privately based has ever received this honour, so we're in fine company, however, guides and scouts, etc., so we're very pleased.
Along with the trophy comes a grant for a similar program next year, while overseas exchange apprentices should arrive here before Christmas.
The new grant that's been announced will enable us to send another 3 apprentices overseas next year, and we're hoping that that will enable us to have it also organised, that industry will pick it up for us and make it an annual event.
Owning your own home has long been an Australian dream, but according to the Housing Industry Association, if you're going to have it built, you'll be paying a lot more. Chief Executive Remo Nogarato says recent changes to the federal government's Industrial Relations Act will cause the price hike. Under the new legislation, if contractors believe they've been harshly dealt with by an employer, they can go to the Industrial Relations Commission. Although they don't have to be represented by a trade union official, the Housing Industry Association believes more trade unions will become involved on these occasions.
That they will wreak the same sort of havoc in the housing sector that they've been able to extract out of the commercial sector. Now, the Royal Commission here in New South Wales showed in a very unequivocal way that the commercial building industry is uncompetitive in international terms. Now, that's not the case with the housing sector.
Remo Nogarato says if the unions do gain more power in this area, they'll be able to impose new conditions on housing contracts.
That will contribute directly to costs on site and indirectly as a result of the loss of productivity. And in our estimation, that'll translate into an increase in housing costs of anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000 on the average home.
However, a spokesman for the Minister, Senator Peter Cook, has rejected these assertions. He says the new laws will have no impact on housing prices. The only people who need to be concerned by the changes are unscrupulous employers who try to financially exploit workers. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The vehicles, now impounded by police, collided near the Wangwalk Bridge south of Taree at about 3:20 a.m. It's believed the northbound vehicle carrying 3 men veered into the path of the other car. Among the dead, the 30-year-old driver from St Mary's in Sydney, who hasn't been named. Passenger Santo Maviglia of Mount Druitt was asleep on the rear seat. Police say he may have survived if he'd worn a seatbelt.
Passenger in the front of that car, wearing a seatbelt at the time, has received minor injuries and is presently at Manning Base Hospital.
The lone driver of the second vehicle was also killed. She was Zoe Kelly of Kulunguluk. Meanwhile, Newcastle police are searching for a white four-wheel drive following an accident on the Pacific Highway at Hexham early this afternoon. Police believe the vehicle may have forced this car parked semi-trailer. It was a chain reaction. 2 other cars and a van were also involved. The Victorian truck driver couldn't believe it.
Well, I don't know what happened because I parked the truck.
He wasn't there.
And I walked across the road, I was talking to this gentleman around the back of the house over there, and I heard a screech and a crash.
Emergency services stemmed an LP gas leak. The driver, a 50-year-old woman from Beresfield near Newcastle, scrambled free of the wreck. She was taken to Newcastle's Mater Hospital with minor facial injuries. She's expected to be released tonight. Both northbound lanes were blocked for about 2 hours as salvage crews cleared the wreckage.
High school students took part in a Japanese speaking competition organised by Newcastle's Sister City Committee at City Hall last night. 22 finalists showed off their skill at mastering one of the most difficult languages in the world. The 4 winners will each be able to put their study into practice when they jet off to Ubay during the next school holidays.
Pool is one of the world's most popular pastimes, and in the States it's huge, so it's no wonder it will form part of the Olympics in '96. And Steady Eddie is serious about being in the Aussie team.
It's going into the next Olympic Games. It'll be the first billiard game ever, and that should get everybody on their toes. I certainly have. I'll be striving very hard to represent Australia at 9-ball at the next Olympic Games.
Eddie is home to play in a 9-ball tournament at the Caledonian at Maitland on Saturday. And I hear you ask, what in name of fortune is 9-ball?
Most of the guys used to playing the pool games around Australia are used to 8-ball, which is using the 15 balls on a slightly smaller table. The championship size table we have is a 9x4.5. The size ball is bigger, but more importantly, there's only 9 of them on the table.
It's an attacking game, and there's a lot of luck in 9-ball, like most other billiard games, but there is a lot of skill as well.
9-ball is played throughout 140 countries and is the most popular form of tournament play in the snooker and billiards family. A quality field has assembled for the event, including Eddie Charlton and the Australian champion Greg Jenkins, with a strong lineup of locals trying to cause an upset. For that to happen, they will have to contend with this. And just to appease a youngster's curiosity, how good is Steady Eddie?
That opposite centre pocket. Here we go.
Emergency services got the call just before 3 o'clock. An accident involving a semi-trailer just south of Kew. Police from Port Macquarie and Laurelton Fire Brigade found the crumpled rig lying on its roof, the load of linen and computer equipment strewn across the highway. Police are still investigating the cause of the accident. Piecing together events, they say the semi-trailer left the highway and careered into a ditch before slamming into a tree. The trailer then overturned, dragging the cabin with it. The driver, 24-year-old David Mabbott from Coffs Harbour, was trapped in the wreck for more than an hour. Dead on arrival at Wauchope District Hospital. The highway was closed for more than 5 hours as salvage crews cleared the wreckage. And in Newcastle last night, a joyride in a stolen car turned to tragedy. 17-year-old Jonathan Nathan Rayner from Mayfield died as he and a mate were drag racing each other along Carnley Avenue at Katara. Police say Rayner was attempting to overtake and ploughed into an oncoming four-wheel drive. The youth died instantly. It took emergency services more than 2 hours to free the body. Police have charged his 19-year-old friend over the theft of the car. He's been bailed to appear in Newcastle local court on September the 7th. Anthony Griffiths, NBN News.
The song is titled Tear Me Apart, from the band which some might call the Wild Men of Rock, the Angels, not the characters you'd expect to be handing out warnings on too much booze.
Initially our response was very cautious. We thought it was going to be one of these preachy, thou shalt not drink sort of things, which would be really hard coming from us.
But the Angels had a change of heart. A national report has found alcohol is a major contributor to violence, and the band has had too many bad experiences themselves to turn a blind eye.
Everybody in the band has been hit on stage by somebody throwing a projectile, and usually if you catch the guy, they're drunk.
The campaign is aimed primarily at 15 to 25-year-olds. Doc Neeson says it's okay to have a drink, but keep it under control. The Angels perform in Newcastle tonight at the Palais.
With a cast of 100, a backstage crew of 20 and 13 coachloads of supporters, the Francis Xavier College wowed an audience of 10,000.
The whole school was there to support us last night. At every level they've been with us. It's just been wonderful. Over 750 there to support us last night.
At first we were all really scared, nervous, but by the time we got into it, it was just fabulous because everyone was cheering us. I mean, not just our crowd, but the whole stadium was cheering us. It just felt so wonderful. It was great.
It was electrifying.
The performance by Year 11 and 12 students titled What Time Love was the culmination of a year's work. Dance is offered as a module in the school's sport program, and the trophy will take pride of place among rugby shields.
The winner is St. Francis Xavier.
It was truly amazing. The Falcons led by 16 points at half-time before Perth hit back to take over midway through the final term. Hanson made it 94-91, and with seconds left, Michael Johnson sent it into overtime. You could cut the tension with a knife. Crawford grabbing a break for the Wildcats before Dozier made two to level the scores at 102 apiece. Again, with only a couple of seconds left, Johnson this time was the villain. Aussie boomer Andrew Vlahoff opened the second period of extra time with a super basket. James Crawford stretched the lead, and then Terry Dozier, with time all but gone, had to make two from the line, and he hit the first. Here's number 2. To the third stanza of extra time, but this time it was all Perth. Steve Davis came in and hit 4 straight shots from the line. Sean Dennis pulled a couple back for the Falcons. But Vlahoff, who was the star, fittingly put it out of the reach of the Falcons, and the Wildcats were home by 5. In this bout, Bianchi of Casino in the maroon seemed to be on top of his opponent Trajan from Tweed Heads. Bianchi continually stuck out the jab, and it was no surprise that he was awarded a unanimous decision in the 67 kilo division. Only 3 fighters in the super heavyweights, but the elimination bout was to say the least sensational. In the white singlet from Grafton, weighing in at plenty, undefeated Graham Fallon, the winner of the majority of his fights in the first round. In the yellow singlet from Taree, relative unknown Wayne Drury, but he wasn't about to take a backward step. There was plenty of leather thrown in the opening exchanges, style making way for pure, unadulterated buffet. And the blood flowed like water, and many of the big hits found their mark. Drury found the range in this flurry of punches to stagger Fallon, but the ref sent Drury to the corner to mop up. Out came Rocky, to be met by murderous barrage from Fallon. But Drury hung on to gain an unexpected majority decision. The only joy for Drury, he's got to do it all again tonight. Scholarship holders were put through a rigorous session by top coaches today, attempting to build on the experience of recent Brisbane and Newcastle competitions. And the future looks bright.
I think administrators are becoming more professional, and I think with places like the North Coast Academy of Sport opening up, then there's more opportunity for the younger players to be exposed to a higher level of netball, and also to be coached by more experienced people in the community. So yes, I think it's in good hands.
The history of coal mining is one of struggle. Bagpipes were used to rally the community, as they once rallied miners against a 16-month lockout at the Rothbury pit. Matt Watson was 17 when police opened fire on the miners in what came to be known as the Rothbury riot.
You could tell they wasn't blacks, and they shot Norman Brown, and other blokes were wounded.
Miners are still fighting pit closures, falling coal prices and multinational competition. Only one of 28 mines has still worked in the area. A statue of a miner was unveiled honouring all who toil in the industry.
It was hard for the miners, but the women, of course, are the backbone of the families, and it was hard for them to make ends meet in the strikes and the lockouts. This is just to honour the families and the men who fought for their rights and are still fighting for them.
It was a superb game of rugby, with Corindi's forwards dominating most of the match and setting up many attacking raids into Moree's half. When Moree had the chance to swing into attack, more often than not the Corindi defence was across in a flash to snuff out any further drive. Corindi was denied a try when the ball shot out along the back line, but at the last moment a forward pass cost them a try. Again the blue and white threw the ball around, and it was a despairing tackle by Moree that stopped a certain try. But it had to come, and it was a forward push of monumental proportions. Against the feed, the Corindi pack surged and won the drive, Mackenzie the try scorer. Try as they may, Moree just couldn't sustain any attacking move, breaking down at the last moment, and will now have to regroup before the major semi. The final table in Central Northern Rugby reads Corindi, Moree, Walker and Barraba in the finals, followed by Tamworth, Narrabri, Gunnedah, Inverell and Pirates.
This morning, owner Pam Hall went to feed the 16-year-old Arabian mare, which was in foal.
Went looking, she wasn't in the usual spot, which is, waiting in the corner looking for a breakfast. So I started to walk the paddocks, and I looked across here and saw the body laying behind the round yard.
During the night, someone had tied the horse to a fence and beaten it about the head with a large piece of wood.
I nearly dropped. Shock. She was a beautiful mare, a lovely natured mare. It was absolute shock. I just couldn't believe it, that somebody could do that.
Police are investigating a possible link between this incident and the killing of a camel last year.
At this stage we don't have any suspects, but we're doing the best we can with what we've got.
If someone is convicted of killing the horse, they could face a fine of up to $6,000 and a jail term. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The Roosters were in full voice early and they opened well. Mike Mills out to Sean Stockham, and his Super Bowl put Tom Roberts and Nambucca were in. Almost immediately the Sea Eagles hit back. Michael Walker brilliantly holding up a pass just long enough for Charlie McHughes to accept it at full pace, and it was 6-all. Maxville went ahead in a throwing the ball around like a hot potato, forcing passes to anyone, and finally it all paid off. Walker pounced on the loose ball and he scored. Ray Forrester made it 12-6 before Bob Muirhead snapped a field goal for a 7-point half-time lead. The second half belonged to the Roosters as they ran all over the tiring Sea Eagles. Stuart Longley's simple try was followed by this excellent work by replacement Guy Stigg. He regathered his own grubber kick and backing up was Stockham, who reached out to put Nambucca in front. Mark Scarf again busted the Maxfield defence out wide, but McHughes was equal to the task. With fresh legs, Stigg again put the ball on the leather and won the race to see the Roosters into the grand final.
Most of Sydney's waste ends up here at the Lucas Heights depot. The question is, should it be expanded to meet future demand? The fate of the waste facility is the subject of a public commission of inquiry before Justices Woodward and Carlton. Dr Greg Unwin of Armidale will assist the inquiry by looking at the rehabilitation of the site. It will take Dr Unwin several weeks to put together his report.
With the Lucas Heights, part of the area of landfill will be rehabilitated to bushland, and the department's expertise in the rehabilitation of mine sites and disturbed areas was seen as a reason to get us into that area to assist.
Dr Unwin has 24 years' experience in the rehabilitation of disturbed land. Recently he was involved in preparing submissions for the inquiry into mineral sand mining at Saltwater Beach near Taree. A final report on that is now being compiled and will determine whether mining on the site proceeds.
Colin Mabry had an operation on his nose in 1987 and subsequently contracted golden staph. After a disagreement with his specialist, Dr Fernandez, Colin decided to change physicians. He sent the doctor $10 for his medical records.
When I went down to pick them up, the girl wasn't sure whether I could take them or not, but I was going straight from there to the specialist, so I took them.
Mabry was charged with stealing his medical records and appeared in Wallsend Local Court in April this year. The magistrate found that Colin Mabry had taken his medical records from Dr Fernandez's surgery here at Cardiff. However, he said the matter was of little moment. The case was dismissed with no cost to be paid. But Mabry received a $20 fine, the proceeds of which would go to a government fund for victims of crime. Colin had until today to pay the penalty, which has subsequently jumped to $70 because of his failure to pay.
I'm going to jail as a statement. I'm trying to make a statement. They can't do this to us. But they're doing a pretty good job of it.
Newcastle Chamber Magistrate Peter Smith says the $20 levy is applicable to everyone who is guilty of an offence which carries a possible jail term. Even though Colin's case was dismissed, he still has to contribute to the Victims of Crime Fund. Jane Anderson, NBN News.